great honor to moderate today's webinar, Commercial Drones Take Flight, Breaking Barriers, Reaching New Heights. To start with, it's really overwhelming to see some influential names and companies from the drone industry as part of today's audience list. This really shows that commercial drone is not just a starry-eyed buzz around aerial pizza delivery, but a lot more. Today on the esteemed panel for discussion, we have our guest speaker, Mr. Thomas Haun, Senior Vice President of Partnerships at PrecisionHawk. I'm sure he needs no introduction. He currently leads global business execution for PrecisionHawk, overseeing strategic direction, ecosystem development, and commercial performance. Also on today's panel is Mr. Gaurav Shukla, BIS Research Analyst and a keen drone enthusiast, who has authored multiple industry reports and has been widely acknowledged by industry opinion leaders for his incisive writing. Both of them have joined from different locations, and really thankful to both of them for your valuable time today. Welcome to both of you. For the next 25 minutes, we are keen to learn from your experiences about the drone industry. And towards the end of the discussion, I will open the panel for any questions from the audience. I would request everybody on the audience list to please mute your phones and systems and kindly type in your questions on cue towards the end of the discussion. Of course, any questions that we might not be able to answer today, we will definitely take it offline. Now, we at BIS Research have been tracking the drone industry for the last 4 years. And by now, we have realized that it is evolving beyond its military origin to become a very powerful tool. We have already seen high-powered drones countering rhino poachers in Malawi, drones delivering blood to clinics in Rwanda, have seen orchestrated drone performances in Las Vegas, and many such instances. And while entertainment and media have been the quickest to embrace commercial drones, industries like construction, energy, and agriculture are expected to drive commercial drone demand in the coming years. They have also made leap the mainstream consumer market, and now drones are being put to work in commercial and civil government applications as well. And that is creating a market opportunity that is too large to ignore. Having said that, let me open this panel for discussion and invite thoughts from Mr. Gaurav Shukla. Over to you, Gaurav.
Thank you so much, Satyendra, for such a nice introduction. I would like to extend my warm welcome to the guests and the esteemed speaker. Thank you so much for joining us on this lovely morning. I would like to begin today's discussion with the 4 mega trends which BIS Research has identified for commercial drone market. The confluence of technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things is every day changing the way we do our regular work. The impact of these technologies on drone industry is much more significant. Companies working in commercial incorporating blockchain to systems. If we look at a global retail corporation, Walmart, they had filed for a patent to automate the process of drone parcel delivery using the blockchain back in May 2017. Along these lines, another Deep Arrow project is currently using blockchain to solve 3 major problems: registration of drones, real-time communication, and geofencing and traffic control. On the other hand, if you look at artificial intelligence or AI, it is definitely being looked as a way to help the drones to overcome current human limitations. At present, if you look at it, most of the drones are usually controlled by humans only, but not in the case of AI-enabled drones. They will be completely autonomous. They will be able to take the decisions, and they're looked upon as the future. This is just one instance where AI is helping and impacting the future of drones. Other instances are like hardware, data gathering, data analysis, and decision making. As Satyendra rightly pointed out, that drones are not mere pizza delivering devices. So another impact is urban air mobility, a concept which is definitely going to revolutionize the way we commute today. Companies like Uber and Airbus are constantly making efforts in this direction. Even if you look at NASA, they had signed an agreement last month with Uber Technologies to further explore the concepts and technologies related to UAM to ensure a safe future air transportation. Even for businesses that use Internet of Things, the location data, it's an exciting time, and the applications go way beyond the drone delivery services. The ability to capture, process, and make sense of geographic informations will impact a lot of industries. Now, let's have a look at where industry stakeholders are showing their interest the most. Drone as a tool, if you look at it, is gradually becoming a primary source of data collection throughout the globe. However, the collected data is completely meaningless if it is not converted into some insightful results. But thanks to the services like data analytics, the collected data can be converted to actionable insights right now. Acquisition of a data analytics provider like Redbird by drone service provider like Airware back in 2016 show us that this is not something very new. The roots of this trend go way back in time. Now, I cannot emphasize enough on that drone delivery is another major avenue that will solve real life problems. The usage of drones for parcel delivery is currently very limited, owing to factors such as absence of traffic system or improper regulations or the lack of trust on current technologies like sense and avoid system. However, thanks to the ongoing efforts by FAA and NASA, this condition is changing, and it is changing fast. The giant e-commerce companies like Amazon and Walmart are already testing drone delivery in real time. The third major shift that the industry is currently observing is from hardware to software and services. To give you an example, in 2016, a drone manufacturer in US, 3D Robotics, had to shut down its drone manufacturing business and became a drone service provider to make the most of this shifting trend. UTM system is expected to be a centralized system, which is another facet where the at present, a series of companies ranging from drone service providers like PrecisionHawk to retail giants like Amazon and communication companies like Verizon, they're all collaborating with NASA and Federal Aviation Administration to provide their technical expertise. And also, as and when UTM system launches as a commercial scenario, these companies will definitely be able to reap the profits. Now, let us move towards the component side and technology side of the drone industry. BIS Research has identified 5 major focus areas where commercial drone industry is looking at. If we call the drone as a robot with wings, then cameras are definitely eyes in the sky. The unprecedented rise in demand of drones for applications like photography and filmmaking has resulted in a clear shift from standard definition camera to the high definition ones. If we look at LiDAR, then before the emergence of drones, it was majorly used through airplanes for aerial data collection. But now with the advent of drones and decreasing size of LiDAR, it is being used in surveying historical sites, agricultural lands, to predict the weather changes, and several other instances where it is making human life simple in more ways than we could ever imagine. Third component would be the sense and avoid system. If you're someone from regulatory environment, you don't want to wake up with the news that a flying drone collided with a manned aircraft and claimed lives. Thanks to the technology like sense and avoid system, we do not need to have this fear anymore. However, this technology needs to be perfected to a 100% error-free system. And for the successful implementation of UTM system, this particular technology is going to be mandatory to have in a commercial drone in upcoming years. The fourth most important component would be the battery. Since we are talking about delivery of things through drones, the flight time of drones need to increase. At present, the average flight time lies somewhere near about 30 minutes for normal commercial drones. But so we are going to see major improvements in the battery area. Similar is true for autopilot. Since we are going to see a lot of autonomous drones flying in the sky in upcoming time, then autopilot will go a complete overhaul. Now, let us talk about the geographical distribution of revenue generation in commercial drone industry. If you look at North America, it is a clearly dominant regional area for drone industry, since key players from across the value chain are present in North America, be it component suppliers, software providers, drone manufacturers, or service providers. Interestingly, a leading drone manufacturer, DJI, which is headquartered in China and acquires more than 65% share of commercial drone industry, considers the North America as the region contributing major share in its revenue generation. Asia Pacific is next in the line. The declining cost of the drones is one of the prime reasons behind their wide acceptance in the price-sensitive countries of the region. Along with this factor, urbanization, industrialization has also increased the demand of drones for several applications across the developing nations, majorly in this particular region. If you talk about Europe, then the best thing about the European nations that I consider is that many of them opt a liberal approach towards drone usage. They allow the companies to run their tests even though they are for beyond visual line of sight operations, which is something which we do not usually see in United States. In France, the beyond visual line of sight operation is allowed in many parts since 2012. And if you look at Germany, then Domino's delivers pizza on the sidewalk in a lot of areas inside Germany. Although different laws in different nations of Europe is something that creates a confusion across the drone industry. However, thanks to the efforts from European Union, this situation is being tackled, and efforts for a common law across the countries are being made by the stakeholders as well as regulatory authorities. Now, let us have a look at the end user scenario of the commercial drone industry. Be it increasing the yield of farmers through precision farming or efficiently detecting the leakage and avoiding it in the oil and gas pipelines, creating maps of mines in places which are inaccessible to humans or overlooking the construction work. All these things are being done with the drones effortlessly and efficiently. Thanks to the drone technology, because otherwise performing these works were pretty tedious and which were very much cost implications involved with it. I will invite Mr. Thomas.
Over to you, Thomas.
Sure thing. Thank you so much. When we think about some of these end user applications, for those that are not familiar with PrecisionHawk, our focus is actually on integrating drone technology to improve business outcomes. When you think about drones, there's much more than the drone itself. We actually work with flight software, sensors, data processing, and safety technology in order to enable these use cases. At PrecisionHawk, our job is to actually package all of that up and turn it into a key solution for our customers' objectives. One of those business challenges that can be impacted by drones is the danger associated with the current method of collecting information in industrial use cases. Deploying in-field personnel, whether they are both walking on the ground or flying in a manned aircraft, to inspect oil and gas assets exposes them to risk and potentially hazardous situations. For those who are unaware, the likelihood of an oil and gas worker dying on the job is 7 times greater than the rate among all U.S. workers. And the cost associated with one fatality oftentimes exceeds $1 million. Obviously, we can see that the current approach of inspectors just being given protective equipment is not effective at reducing the cost and, unfortunately, the safety impacts of collecting information today. If we can flip to the next slide. However, this is the time in the drone industry. At PrecisionHawk, we have seen a tremendous amount of growth and the immense potential that exists to create even more opportunities in this space. The ability for this technology to significantly improve businesses and our lives generally makes it an incredibly exciting space. The trends that are enabling this today has to do with some of the things that were already mentioned. Obviously, the endurance associated with drones has continued to increase over the past 5 years. The sensor quality that's associated with those drones has also increased so that we can capture better data and information for those business use cases. At the same time, what we are seeing are other macro trends that help. The miniaturization of all of this equipment allows it to be much more transportable and actually safer when it comes to operations, as well as the compute costs associated with processing all of this data into insights or aerial intelligence is a great macro trend that helps this industry. Lastly, we talked a little bit about regulation, but what the FAA has done to certify drone operators under Part 107 cannot be understated. This has allowed an immense amount of use cases and a large populace in the United States to actually take to the sky with drones. Next slide. When we think about the current industry progress, PrecisionHawk continues to push the boundaries of where drone technology can be used. This oftentimes has to do, again, with improving safety while acquiring better information more efficiently about a given company's assets. When we think about the construction space and being able to monitor progress of all new buildings or ensure that the maintenance of existing buildings is done so optimally, we know this technology can make an impact. When we think about agriculture and being able to be more efficient with the water and fertilizer that is used on farms, we know this technology can be impactful. When we think about the energy space and being able to mitigate any issues, minimize any leaks, and provide better information about our critical infrastructure like our power grid, we know this technology can make an impact. And when we think about insurance, whether it's a natural disaster or whether it's just looking at hail damage from leaking roofs, we know this technology can make an impact. We're at the forefront of mapping and surveying use cases. The information that is provided via drones is better than any other methodology of collecting that information. Putting folks in the field is dangerous, and oftentimes only spot checks can happen. What drones can do is make for safe, holistic data capture that will create a layer of intelligence, a layer of aerial intelligence that will revolutionize the way we think about these industries. Obviously, it is very important that all of this is done in conjunction with the business processes at these companies. At PrecisionHawk, we actually focus on integrating this technology into these use cases so that there is not a limitation, so that there is not a problem, so that there is not an issue with having this information and not utilizing it. When we talk to a lot of the clients that we have, they're oftentimes inundated with data. PrecisionHawk's focus is actually on delivering that insight, those 5 key performance indicators that will allow them to be a better business. Next slide. When we envision the future of the drone industry, we see drones operating in the sky ubiquitously. This will manifest in delivering your Amazon packages, helping safety responders and public responders react to emergency situations, and drones taking on those dull, dirty, and dangerous jobs that we were just talking about in our industrial sector. Obviously, there will be 3 key pillars upon which this future drone ecosystem will be based. The first is accessibility. Today, although there are many drone operators in the United States, it is not easy to find a drone operator. In the future, there will be prevalent on-demand service delivery, and combining that with automated technologies will create this ubiquitous use case that we're talking about. You could envision looking out your window and seeing drones operate on a regular basis and thinking nothing of it, just like the cars passing by on the street. The second pillar is information. We know that drones will create a new data stream, a new information layer that will change the way we think about all types of businesses, from energy companies to logistics companies to first responders. This will be based upon robust communications and open transaction frameworks. These will enable this free information flow that will allow us to operate safely. Obviously, safety is that third pillar. Safety will be based upon mature regulatory protocols and some advanced mission capabilities. This will create a paradigm shift in the way drones are operated. Today, most regulatory environments require that drones stay within visual line of sight of the operator. Tomorrow, that will change. We will be pushing to have drones operating in an automated fashion, drones operating beyond visual line of sight and accomplishing the tasks that they are very well equipped to do. And obviously, drones will be operating in a mixed airspace alongside manned aircraft when we think about the urban mobility trends, as well as other general aviators that are in the airspace. I'd really like to thank BIS for including PrecisionHawk as a guest speaker for this webinar, and I will turn it back over to you guys and look forward to the questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas and Mr. Gaurav, for defining drones and how the capabilities can be leveraged in commercial business operations. Definitely, from what I understand today, is drones are not just a fad. They are here to stay and will soon become a mainstream. And I believe that the $12 billion market opportunity that we at BIS Research forecast, drone industry is just touching the tip of the iceberg in terms of new ways of conducting business. We see drones headed for new heights in the business world, and the full economic potential is likely to be multiple times that number. With that thought, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude today's session. And I now declare the forum open for any questions from the listeners. I may request the listeners and the audience to kindly type in your questions on the chat box available on the right-hand side corner of your screen. And I'll be happy to pass the questions to the esteemed speakers today. Okay, great. So we have already got one question from Mr. Michael. Mr. Michael says, I have a question. Companies like Amazon, UPS, Google, and DHL are already discovering ways to deliver packages with drones as a substitute of trucks. What kind of challenges do you perceive that need to be handled beforehand for using drones commercially for product delivery application? Since Gaurav, you were talking about drones and the delivery system, the parcel delivery, do you mind taking this question for yourself?
Yeah. Thank you so much for asking such an interesting question. This question is something that a lot of people have in mind. So here we can understand it in step by step. Okay. So for drone delivery to become a mainstream application, there are a range of challenges. Firstly, there are technical challenges. For instance, the flight time of drone, as I mentioned previously, is not still good enough to perform applications like product delivery on a real-time basis. If you look at it, the deliveries are being done, but when we talk about product deliveries in long ranges, product deliveries from a warehouse to somewhere that it needs to be delivered maybe in kilometers, the average...
Thomas, do you want me to repeat that question?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So does PrecisionHawk use any form of real-time augmented reality, any type of augmented reality to increase the situational awareness of the drone operator and relevance of the video to the client?
Yep, this is a great question around augmented reality. So there are specific use cases where providing information in context is important. When we think about the information that can be provided, or I'm sorry, gathered via the drone, and then provided in some type of display format to a client, oftentimes putting that kind of in the real space can be important. So whether these are maps on a dot that you are walking to, or I'm sorry, dots on a map that you are walking to, and seeing in real life the same information that a drone has presented you, or providing a remote pilot some situational awareness about where inbound aircraft might be. This kind of augmentative reality concept we believe is important and can be enabling when we think about both safe operation as well as the generation of insights from all of this drone captured data.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas. Of course, there's one more question that is directed to you. Mr. George here says, what advancements do you think will be required in the drone ecosystem to make beyond visual line of sight, BVLOS operations, a reality in the future?
Well, obviously, when we think about beyond line of sight operations and we think about kind of the regulatory environment, we need to promote safety as the foremost acceptable criteria. When I talked a little bit about the information flow as being a key enabler to the future drone ecosystem, this can also be thought about when we are thinking beyond visual line of sight flight. What that information flow will allow is context and awareness to operators even when they cannot see something with their eyes. And that information flow being free, open, and frankly, very efficient or very kind of real time is a key enabler. In addition to that, being able to build advanced mission capabilities into the drones themselves is an important element. I talked about this under the safety pillar. Having drones that have some intelligence and some capability to leverage this free information flow that I talked about just moments ago is an important element as well. And so we believe that there will be a combination of factors, moving information, creating context for operators, and creating context for the drone and allowing the drone to act on that context, that is very important. When you see where the FAA has granted beyond line of sight waivers to date, they all talk about some automated capability within the drone itself. Whether that is programmatic or responsive to context, it is an important element.
Right. Thomas, I totally understand that. There's one aspect that definitely I would want to cover, considering the limited time frame that we have. Gaurav, earlier today you were discussing about traffic management and UTM, the traffic management resources. There's one question that has typically come in that direction. So the gentleman here says, how do you foresee traffic going to get managed once you have situations where swarms of drones, flying taxis, and commercial airplanes are sharing the same airspace?
Thank you so much for asking that question. Well, this is a very typical question that comes from not only from public only, but also from regulatory authorities. This is one of the biggest fear that people in the drone industry have, that what if everything comes together and collide? However, if you look at the model presented by NASA or FAA, the model of UTM system, the architecture that they are working on, and not only them, but also in Europe, if you look at the US space or the JUTM in Japan, they are all working out on an architecture where they have near perfect solution for preventing any such situation from arising. First, they have the height limited up to nearly 500 feet, which nearly rules out the possibility of drone colliding with a commercial aircraft on a regular day. Now, if you talk about the air taxis or swarm of drones, well, then the flight plan for any drone to operate over in beyond visual line of sight or over populated area, the flight plan would be required to be filed beforehand, and this flight plan will not be approved if it is crossing path with someone else. Then there are definitely some of the loopholes as well in the system. But I believe the governing bodies, NASA, regulatory authorities, and the stakeholders are coming together to solve those roadblocks. And rest assured, the future of drones is safe and secure with the implementation of UTM system.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for covering all the aspects. Now we have run out of time, and in the end, I would really like to thank Mr. Thomas for joining us today for this wonderful session. We have really learned a lot, and Gaurav, of course, thank you so much for sharing your insights. We have learned a lot about safety regulations. We have touched base upon the future of drones and what PrecisionHawk in turns does in terms of augmented reality, and a lot of minute things catering to different industry sectors. We have got very overwhelming response and a lot of questions. Of course, the team of analysts here and with the help of Mr. Thomas Haun himself, we would try to answer each and every question in a very short span of time, perhaps not today, but in the next few days, definitely. Having said that, let me conclude today's session. And once again, I thank each and every one of you who has attended today's session, and have a really nice morning ahead. Have a nice day, guys. Thank you, Thomas, for your time. Thank you, Gaurav.